Christmas has been the most celebrated holiday for over 2,000 years. It is a holiday centered around giving, commemorating the birthday of Jesus Christ. But what if I told you that Christmas is made up of many traditions that aren't necessarily Christian? In fact, they are pretty unchristian. Maybe you are a Christian who is suspicious about the pagan roots of Christmas, or maybe you aren't religious and are just curious about the origins of Christmas. Either way, this video is for you. We think our holidays are festive today, but boy did the Romans know how to throw a party. In this video, we learn about the Roman festival that is directly linked to our modern Christmas. So without further ado, let's dive in. When thinking about Christmas, it may help us to understand that the idea of winter celebrations is not a modern phenomenon. We associate Christmas with the birth of Christ, but in ancient Roman times, long before Christ was born, the Romans celebrated a festival called Saturnalia, honoring Saturn, the god of agriculture. It was first a one-day celebration in December, but as the years went by, it eventually turned into a week-long festival. To say it was rowdy would be an understatement. To kick off Saturnalia, the Romans always began with a good old sacrifice to Saturn. It seems that even the Romans, though possibly seeking in the wrong place, had a sense of divine intervention. Rather than believing in divine grace as the Christians, however, they believed in mutual trust, fides, between the gods and man. They believed that by sacrificing to their gods, they could maintain the peace of the gods, pax deorum. You know how the holiday spirit today leads people to generosity? The Romans took this to a whole new level. During these winter festivals, the Roman social order was literally turned upside down. Slaves, who were normally the lowest of society, were treated as equals or even superior to their masters. During these festivities, they were encouraged to boss their masters around. Saturnalia was so important that businesses and schools would close so that all could participate in the festivities. Wow, we think of our holidays as festive today, but surely the Romans would have laughed at our one-day Christmas celebration. You might think of decorating evergreen trees as something relatively new, but the Romans, along with many other cultures, were known for decorating their homes and sanctuaries with evergreen trees and boughs. This symbolized fertility and reminded them of the new life that would soon return in the spring. The evergreens also supposedly warded off the evil spirits and witches. The Romans did not have access to electricity, but that didn't stop them from achieving the holiday cheer. Much like the effect of Christmas lights today, during the Roman Saturnalia and other festivals throughout the ages, people would lighten up the darkest days of winter with candles and torches. Today we think of Santa Claus as an old fat white guy in a red suit who can barely fit down your chimney. But where does he come from? I mean, besides the North Pole. Santa Claus traces back to the 3rd century AD to a monk named Saint Nicholas. Nicholas was born sometime around 280 AD, and during his lifetime he developed a good reputation for his kindness in giving to children and the less fortunate. As years passed, his good deeds continued to be recognized, and eventually his figure became one of the many Christmas traditions. Though Santa Claus may not come directly from any particular part of Saturnalia, Saturnalia did involve the private exchange of gifts. Doesn't this all look a little similar to our modern-day Christmas? So when did all of this turn into Christmas? A separate holiday that followed Saturnalia was called Dies Natalis Solis Invicti, the Day of the Invincible Sun, or the Day of the Unconquered Sun. This was celebrated on December 25th. The Romans believed that the sun was a god, and during the winter he grew sick and weak. December 25th was the day the sun began to recover, also the point from which the days would grow in length. Constantine was a Roman emperor who reigned from 306 to 337 AD. In around 312 AD, Constantine underwent a conversion to Christianity, later leading to the Christianization of the empire. After the Roman Empire became more Christian, there was a movement to weaken the non-Christian traditions that were so deeply embedded in the Roman culture. The church eventually settled on December 25th as the day to celebrate the birth of Christ. They combined it with the already popular holidays of Saturnalia and Dies Natalis Solis Invicti. Perhaps it is not so much that Christmas is a pagan holiday, but rather that with Christian influence upon culture, it suppressed and even sanctified these paganisms. I use the word sanctified lightly, as many acclaimed Christians still seem to be bogged down in the traditions of culture. The church chose December 25th as the day to recognize the birth of Christ, but that is not likely when he was born. According to biblical accounts, during Christ's birth, shepherds were pasturing sheep, not something that took place in December. It is therefore more likely that he was born sometime in the spring. All of that aside, joining Christ's birth to an already celebrated holiday was a convenient way to replace all of those pagan traditions with something holier. Now that we have discovered where many of these traditions come from, now I would like to ask, what does Christmas actually mean? The word Christmas is made up of two words meaning Christ's Mass, or the Mass of Christ. Over time, by saying Christ's Mass, it eventually becomes Christmas. The word Mass or Missa comes from the Latin word mittere, meaning to send. From this comes the word missio, or mission in English. So the Mass of Christ is literally the sending forth of Christ. But what do all of these traditions have to do with the sending forth of Christ? Many Christians defending Christmas as the birth of Christ try to add spiritual significance to the old traditions. My intent is not to distinguish Christian from non-Christian traditions, but rather to answer why Christ's Mass is so significant. So why did Jesus come? In answering this question, allow me to read a passage from the Latin Vulgate. Sic enim dilexit Deus mundum, ut filium suum unigenitum daret, ut omnis qui credit in eum non pareat, sed habeat vitam aeternam. Non enimisit Deus filium suum in mundum, ut judicet mundum, sed ut salveretur mundus per ipsum. The reason Jesus' birth is so important is that he had to be born to accomplish his life's purpose of dying on the cross. The only way for man's species to be redeemed was for God himself to become a man and suffer in man's place. So returning to the celebration of Christmas, the Bible doesn't specifically tell us to celebrate Jesus' birth, but it does tell us to celebrate his death. This is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. Jesus was, of course, symbolically speaking of his body, which was broken on the cross. With all of that said, I'd like to leave you with this. Go enjoy your Christmas this year. The vital question is not whether you should or shouldn't celebrate Christmas. If celebrating Christmas has been in your family tradition for generations, there's no reason to stop celebrating it. The most important thing that Jesus wants us to remember is that he came and why he came. So finally, wherever you are this Christmas, I hope you can set aside all family disagreements at the dinner table and enjoy Christmas under a new light. Alright everyone, that is it for the video. Bonem diem natalis vobis opto. I wish you all a Merry Christmas. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. In proximum. Until next time.